Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Interplay Podcast, Episode 2. My name is Christine Gautreaux, and I am your host for today. And I am delighted to introduce you to our guest. Our guest today is Carolyn Renée, and she is our Interplay BIPOC Liaison. And I'm going to let her explain that to you once we get her up here on screen. But first, I want to read you her bio. So I had it all pulled up and ready to go, but we were having a few tech issues. So, the way it works in Interplay is we have that easy focuser where we go, whee, and we release a little bit of the stress. That's what's happening over here today. So Carolyn Renée is a certified Interplay leader, artist, and wellness educator. Her unconventional path to uncovering her creative gifts was studying with renowned writers, storytellers, musicians, and actors. After developing her craft, she went on to write stories, songs, and plays, and co-producing her own one-woman play, Womb Creations: Journey to Love, Catalyst for Change, directed by Hilda Willis of Living Your Art. She also, with a grant in Atlanta from the Mayor's Office of Cultural Affairs, Carolyn Renée wrote her second play, The Mother-Daughter Dialogues, which led her to organizing mother-daughter dialogues circles throughout Atlanta, Georgia. Today, she builds collaborations with other powerful women and people at the intersection of art and wellness, changing lives one project at a time through her nonprofit, Women Helping Others Advance, and through her role in Interplay. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the stage, Carolyn Renée.
Oh, thank you so much, Christine, for having me here with you today. I'm grateful, and hello, world. So happy to be here on this podcast.
Right? So glad you are here. And also, it's our second episode, right? So we're brand new at this over here at Interplay. And what we have been playing around with, first of all, I want to give a shout out to Terry Zorich, who is one of the other hosts of the Interplay podcast. If you saw the start with the graphic, she drew that and designed it, and it's gorgeous. I also want to give a shout out to our music. Our theme music is Echo Lady Who by Eric Chappelle. And you can find more of his music on Bandcamp and YouTube, and we'll put that in our show notes. So, Carolyn Renée, the first episode we started with some I Could Talk Abouts. Are you up to play and just do a few rounds of I Could Talk Abouts?
I'm happy to do some I Could Talk Abouts.
You want to start?
Sure. I could talk about the beauty of spring on the horizon here in Atlanta, Georgia. Just magnificent.
I could talk about how much I love tech until there's a problem.
Yes, I understand that. I could talk about just the animals, and happy to see them all about, as well as the spring is arising and upon us.
I could talk about Interplay and some of the specific programs we have, and specifically thinking about some of the ones you brought into being.
I could talk about Interplay and Body Wisdom, who stewards the forms and tools of Interplay, and how much it's changed my life.
All right, I think I'm going to finish with this one. I could talk about the title of today's show, Interplay's Inner Wisdom, because that's what bubbled up when I thought about meeting and talking with you today.
Oh, wow.
And just the You're welcome. Like the wisdom you bring to us and your groundedness and your practices, and I'm delighted that we can have a conversation and share some of them with the world.
Yes, let's do that.
All right, so I'm going to start with the first question. How do your personal embodiment practices, such as interplay and other somatic modalities, contribute to a deeper understanding of the self?
Oh my God, it all starts with the self, and being connected and being in touch and in tune. So my embodiment practices help me to do just that from my practice of Buddhism for the past, I think, whatever 2006 was to right now, practicing Buddhism for that long. That's that has allowed me to, connect inward more to what's happening in my body. And then the other piece of that puzzle was yoga, help tap into more of what's going on in this body. Because when you're moving, you're getting stronger, and then you start to feel the feels. And I think I love music. I write songs, I sing songs. So that's like vibration. People always think music comes from the voice, and music actually comes from the body. I mean, the voice, the mechanism of the voice, there's different mechanics going on to help, but it's got to start, it's got to come from the toes to the hands to the shoulder and out the mouth. And I would say the cherry on top that tied it all together is interplay, body wisdom and the 26 plus forms and 8 tools, really just help me go all the way in, because it's about the wisdom of the body.
Right? Well, as an experienced interplay leader and a certified interplay leader, we're not going to ask every guest this, but I'm going to ask you this. Like, what is your favorite? And I know it's hard to pick one, but what's your favorite form and why?
My goodness, I would have to say the singing forms,
Hmm.
group singing, group toning, and just the 3 breath song, being able to tap into, if you can talk, you can sing, right? And I believe it's the same thing. If you can walk, you can dance. And our world that we live in, has us believe you have to go to Juilliard or some special place, and have to have been born with this, everybody, but everybody can talk. And so Interplay's 3 breath song, it just gets you there. We're not even talking about singing. We're talking about a 3 breath song. And I'm not telling you it's a 3 breath song. I want you to follow me and do some things.
Right? I was going to follow up with that because sometimes people get scared by the word singing, right? And I don't actually think it's the word. I think it's what society tells us, or, that we have to sound like Beyonce or we have to sound a certain way. But I heard you when you said if anybody can talk, they can sing or they can make noise with their voice, right? And I just want to give you a shout out because I recently attended a performance intensive that you and Masanko and Jennifer Denning did in Atlanta. And the way you led and guided us in to these vocal forms was amazing and easeful.
Thank you.
Yeah. And a
Yeah.
shameless plug because we're going to have another intensive in Atlanta in the fall. The dates haven't been set yet, but y'all should think about joining us in Atlanta for this intensive because I think it's going to be pretty amazing. Well, Carolyn Renee, as a playwright, as an interplay leader, and with your nonprofit, Women Helping Others Advance, how are you using interplay and other somatic practices to create change in our world?
Really through collaboration. I was so happy. One of the founders of Interplay, I think it was Cynthia Winton Henry, might have been Phil, one of them, acknowledged, we were in a conversation, and they were like, Carolyn Renee, you're a collaborative leader. So the fact that they saw that in me and just, you know, named it made me feel good. So really the way that I do my work is through collaboration. I'm always looking like at the intersection of wellness and the creative arts is where I dwell. And so I think in Interplay has four movement forms, and I'm sure you're going to do a podcast on that one, movement patterns. And so I'm a little bit of all of them, but I feel like that swinging thing is just
Mhm.
inbred in me. And that's really about connecting individuals and resources. And so the way that I get the work done, we just came off of a Interplay Leaders Gathering World, and we celebrated through this weaving the threads of the connection. Weaving the
Mm.
threads of connection was our theme, and I feel like that's really how I live my life. It's like, so to answer that question, it's all about collaboration. How does Woe and Carolyn Renee Hill work in collaboration with, there's an organization called Women Connected in Wisdom, right? So where's that intersection where that organization does their work, I do my work, let's come together and, make the footprint of healing and interplay, um, more accessible, because I'm bringing interplay to all of it.
Right. And giving you a shout out about this because Woe was one of the sponsors for Interplay's recent 11-day event, Dancing on Behalf of Peace. And thank you for that. And I witness you. I mean, I've been lucky enough because I'm in Atlanta and you're in Atlanta. So we have been collaborating for numerous years, but I've witnessed your community organizing skills and collaboration and the way you use your somatic practices to be present also, like when you're in community. And so grateful, just truly grateful for your work in the world.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So now this is kind of a trick question, right? So we're planning on interviewing Interplay leaders, staff, community collaborators, and you're kind of all of those, right? So how do you describe Interplay to somebody who doesn't know about
You know, and you may be aware because we live in Atlanta together, and you've heard me say this, that if I was going to describe chocolate cake to you, I could describe it all day long, but I need you to take a bite of it,
it?
And so I feel that way about interplay. It is really challenging to describe to folks. I say that it is an art based system that uses movement, storytelling, and the voice to tap into the wisdom of the body and bring out what wants to come out and be expressed. That's a lot to say. You know what I'm saying? And so,
Right?
what does that mean? How does that break down? I just had someone tell me, and I'm saying that to you, about the chocolate cake thing, because I
Right.
just had a owner of a business tell me, "Well, Carolyn, I don't know what interplay. I don't really get it, but I want you to come and close out a circle that we're having, so we can experience it." So I really appreciated that, but I'm working on, because you and I are seeing each other, and so I'm being animated, art-based system. I'm tapping into my body, so I'm reaching
Right.
into my body. I'm pulling
Right.
out. Everybody's not going to see me, right, when I say those things. So I'm really working on, shortening the elevator speech, and I need you to feel it, people. Let's all take a deep breath in. Let's take a deep breath
Oh, let's
in.
take a deep
Out the
breath
neck
in.
and let it out. We're doing all.
Woo.
That's interplay.
Right? Right? And tapping into our bodies and listening to our bodies to tap into that inner wisdom, right? What do we need in this moment?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, a follow up question to that, Carolyn Renee, is what does interplay mean to you specifically?
Really, it has come to mean the world to me. Like, seriously. Oh, you mean the world. You mean the world to me. You are my everything. You're the only thing that matters. You're up there. You're up there in a play. So, I think it has happened that way just by virtue of, I would say, being an Indigenous person, a BIPOC person, having roots in my mother's part Cherokee, my grandfather's part Cherokee. I'm African American, and I'm sure I got roots that go back. But one of the things that's been consistent in my life is the arts. You
Mhm.
know, I'm telling you, my daughter just said to me yesterday, we were talking on the ride to my house, and I was telling her about her sister doing something artistic, um, taking an acting class. She was like, "Well, mommy, where did she take that acting class?" I said, "Well, I said the Arts Exchange. You know, that would have to be Atlanta." She was like, she corrected me. She said, "Mommy, you know, you've had us in the arts all our lives. It could have been anywhere." So I'm driving. I was like, "Thank you so much. Thank you so much." So that's what interplay means to me. It's like, it's just this storytelling movement and voice has been in our lives. My children,
Right.
they passed the 2 decade mark. So all their lives. And I said, I was so happy. I said, because you remember, mommy put you all in art-based curriculum schools. If the school didn't have art to teach the subject, you know you weren't going there. No, I was a woman on a mission. And that's where they went all their
And
lives.
you have been living that mission a long, long time. I want to let our live listeners know if you have any questions for Carolyn Renee, feel free to put them in the comments and we can ask her those questions in these last few minutes, or you can give her some hearts and flowers and appreciation. You know, one of our core values in interplay is affirmation and looking for the good. And Carolyn Renee, I think about all the work and in the world you do and in our community, and I am lucky to benefit from so much of it because we are in the same geographical area. But I also think about the work that you're doing across the nation and internationally as the BIPOC liaison. Will you let folks know a little bit about that, about what's going on and how to get connected?
Absolutely. So, Interplay has a liaison to people of color, is what it started out as, POC. And the first person to hold that position in our organization was Koktani. And so I was her successor, as well as Masako. She made such a big footprint, she had to have two liaisons. So Masako is actually the international liaison, and I'm here in the United States. We started off co-liaisoning, but together we have really, um, and independent of each other as well. I want to say, we've done things together, and then Masako has held the side by side, which is an international event. And I've been busy here in the U.S., doing my best to keep my finger on the pulse, my ear at the heartbeat of what's needed. And for example, when George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Ahmaud Arbery were all murdered during the pandemic and brought more attention to that, we created something called a loving container where we could just receive all BIPOC, whether they were Interplay or not even in an Interplay organization, to receive one of our forums called Focus Session, where we just focus on you, and we just bring the Interplay tools into the room, and you are the spotlight. You just say what you need, and we just lavish those forms on you to tell your story. So there's that. So the loving container, and then there's a program called the RET Mini Grant, which there's a long story behind that, but I'm not going to tell y'all that today. Um, brought that idea to the founders with a whole nother name for a grant program, and got went back to the drawing table, and then it came back with a different label on it and some tweaks. And so we need to get that program up and running again, the RET Mini Grant.
So
And
that stands for racial equity and transformation,
I was
correct?
about to tell you that, racial equity and
Awesome.
transformation, because um, coming from where we come from in this world, and Interplay starting out as a predominantly white culture organization, but shifting that dynamic over time. And Koktani's been instrumental, Sri Raheen, Masanko Banda, myself, a host of others, in bringing, what does true diversity, equity, and inclusion look like? So in
Mhm.
Interplay, that's what we're about. So that's one of the things I've been working on. And then doing retreats, have done a couple of online retreats with the help of Natty, Masanko, Kira Allen, Tony, Laverne, just a whole host
Right?
of BIPOC, Ade,
Incredible leaders.
Fluke, many, many, many involved, right? And so we're getting ready for a in-person
Mm.
retreat, Christine, May 30th through June 2nd on the Alabama shores. And the place we found, it's a gem. It is
Mm.
a so
I know. You showed it to me, and it's gorgeous. It is truly going to be a beautiful place to retreat.
yeah. So that's what's been happening with the BIPOC. I hope I answered the question, y'all. I went on a
I
tangent.
think you did. No, you did great. And we have an incredible question that comes from, and I hope I get your name right, from Javi Fernandez. And she says, as a person of color, we're often on survival mode. How do you stay mindful of that feeling in your body and give yourself the permission to play? What a great question.
That is a phenomenal question, and I really appreciate it. And one of the things that Interplay has gifted me with, yes, survival mode is real. I've been swimming upstream for a while, but that's the other thing. It's like, how can I be present right here in my body, right here, right now in my body? And how can Interplay has a forum. It's called the Story Circle, right? And so we create a story about where we want to be in the world. And, scientifically, we got that other part that's working. Joe Dispenza's done a lot of work. That's a whole nother world. But he's written about how neurologically we can have put ourselves where we want to be in our cellular body and get ourselves there. So I feel like with his practice plus this, let's bring Interplay back in here. If I'm telling a story circle, I got a story circle for you right now. I see Carolyn Renee traveling on different continents and doing Interplay throughout the world, and even with you, and affirming that I am prosperous, I am abundant, and feeling that somatically. What does that feel like? And really living into that space. Because the more because I've been in survival mode, I know exactly what you're talking about. So one of the things we seek to do is we play together. We have something called points of connection. So and you're invited, okay? It's going to be taking place. You can follow up through this podcast and we can let you know it's taking place this Sunday at 11 Eastern time. I think I have that right. Maybe it's 1 Pacific time. But
We'll put
hit
the
us
link
up.
in the show
Hit us up.
notes.
We'll give you, okay, check out the show notes. So come and be held by other interplayers. So that's one of the ways we get out of survival mode. We cheer each other on, honey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes me think of a conversation you and I had before, Carolyn Renee, about Andrew Huberman and his podcast over at Huberman Lab out of Stanford, because the science is catching up with what we know to be true as interplayers about if we can get into our parasympathetic side of our nervous system, and we can release that stress and release and for me, I know that that's what those interplay tools and forms do, right? It gives us the tools to get out of fight or flight and into our relaxed state to be able to be present in the moment. So,
Yes, very good question. Because the more present we are in the moment, we're happy. And that happy feeling is what is going to magnetize more of what we want to take us out of survival mode. So,
right?
yeah.
Right? Okay, last question because I know we're coming close to time.
No.
What role do your personal embodiment practices play in creating a sense of belonging?
Oh my God, everything. It's like one of the things, I don't know if it's because I'm getting older, it's like just acknowledging my own breath, so it's back to the Huberman lab, I learned something new and I've shared it with my colleagues, the physiological sigh. We all do it every 5 minutes, but you hear it in interplay. Let's do it together right now, y'all.
Mhm.
Deep breath in, external sigh.
Ah.
So that right there to Christine's question, and when I'm in the presence of other human beings, how can I feel into them, and how can I make them more present and be mindful of? Because if my central nervous system is parasympathetic, then I can transmit that energy to the next person, and so that's where I'm vibing at
Mm.
within. Let's do what I could talk about with the person in front of me. I don't know you, but let's do it. Talk about how fly your shoes are. Sometimes people just need to know that you see them. And interplay allows
Right?
that.
Ah, Carolyn Renee, thank you, thank you, thank you for your time, for your leadership, for how you show up in the world. I am so grateful to be in community with you and to get to lift up your voice today as one of our impactful leaders in Interplay. And I am just so grateful. If you are willing, I want to close today with a thing we often do in Interplay is putting a hand on our heart and a
Oh,
hand up to the screen
okay, here we go. Let me see if I can do this. Yes. Oh,
and just we're just going to send a little love out
okay.
to our listeners who are listening live, our listeners who are listening to the recording, and just thank you for being here. We are grateful, and we'll talk to you next time.
Thank you so much. Sending all the love to you, Christine, and thank you for your good work in the world. We love you.
Love you too, my friend.